Hello, my friends, and welcome to Where Wendy Creates. Today we are making this beautiful 3 fabric quilt. I am so excited. I cannot wait to share it with you. 3 fabric quilt. You can do this too. All right, I am so excited. We are making a strip quilt of sorts out of these 3 fabrics. We're going to go ahead and cut strips of 3.5 inches wide, and we're going to start sewing them together. And we are having bright yellow, bright blue, bright red. I'm so excited. This is going to be a great, fast, fun, easy quilt. And to begin our strip quilt, we're going to go ahead and join all of our blue together, then we'll join all of our red together, then we'll join all of our yellow together, and then we will start sewing them into strips. But first, let's join some ends. And we're just taking them from the stack as they come, right sides together, scratching with our fingers to make them even up perfectly. And then I'm back stitching at the beginning and at the end. Not that you have to, but I like locking my stitch. So if you have one of those machines where you can automatically lock your stitch, this is definitely one of those times I would recommend using it, because it makes things so easy. And again, I am using the Singer Heavy Duty, so it is naturally louder than most machines. It is made of a lot more metal than most machines. It is my workhorse. It is what I use on a daily basis. I am rough with it, I am fast with it, and it is wonderful. The main thing, if you're working on a Singer Heavy Duty, which yes, Joann Fabrics has them right now, but at 10-20% off, it's still possibly a couple dollars more than Walmart at the moment. So I would recommend, if you're going to do a lot of thick materials, a lot of jeans, a lot of batting, you're going to be working on the sewing machine every single day. If you want an absolute workhorse for low payments, low dollar amount, the Singer Heavy Duty has been very good for me. And why do I like it? Well, I like the larger neck, which this one has, and it is a workhorse. But again, I also like it because I had an expensive machine. I still do. I have several expensive machines. But working on my fabric bowls, my bowl warmers, my quilt binding, maybe being a little too rough on a daily use, I bent the head of the machine. What is the head? The head is in this part right here. So when you break this part in here, you bend that metal. My friends, it costs just as much to fix it as it does a new machine. So I paid about $150 to be told that my machine was not fixable for less than the price of buying a new machine. So that is why oftentimes you will see me using the Singer Heavy Duty for most of my everyday uses. And if we want fancy stitches, yes, there's a couple fancy stitches here. But if I'm going to be doing gentler piecing for a more extended time period, you'll see me pick up one of the other machines and use it. All right. We are almost done connecting our blues. And we are sewing all of our ends together so that all of our strips can be sewn together nice and easy. And now we're going to go ahead and match all of the yellow together. And I like to back stitch at the end. And I'm back stitching at each segment. And then I'm going to match up my next two pieces right sides together. We're doing this for all three colors that I'm using. And again, these are 3.5-inch strips that we've cut out from not quite solid fabrics, but fabrics not representative of any other color other than their bright, perky, happy yellow, blue, and red. And one more, and then we'll have our yellow stacked together. Then we can go ahead and sew the colors together. Sweet. And after a quick trip to the cutting board and the ironing board, we are back sewing our 3.5-inch strips together. Make sure I line these up right. And we've got our 1/4 inch. This is tape you can get at most any quilt store. Might even be able to find it in the craft stores and the washi tape area. It just shows you this is your stitch line in red. If you have your sewing machine set to stitch in the center of your foot, and then you have your 1/4 inch on either side. And you want to constantly be readjusting your fabric. Make sure it's not weighted down. They're laid together nicely. That way you're not fighting them. And they're sliding through your fingers. I like to put them through my fingers like this on either side. And that way it helps keep the layers smoothly together. Maybe 3 to 6 inches, and then I readjust, and I can readjust by scratching with my fingernail the fabric one way or the fabric the other way to make it all line up. And you can move your fabric away to see your bobbin and know how much thread you have left on it. All right, and now we're going to sew our red onto our yellow and our blue. Look how incredible that just really pops. I love, 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 love seeing these bright colors together. And I thought about purple, but nah, let's go with 3. And these are just really, really happy looking blocks, I think. And because we are dealing with very long strips, I am doing about 4 or 5 inches, realigning, making sure we're right on that line, and then continuing. We're watching that we're right on that edge, and we're watching our 1/4 inch. We've got enough bobbin. We're using the right colored thread. And we are sewing our 3 strips together for our quilt. Then we're going to be meeting at the ironing board and pressing our seams. And then on over to the cutting board to cut us up into blocks. I am really excited about this quilt, and I think it's going to be fast, happy, and you, my friends, are going to love, 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 love this quilt, hopefully as much as I love it. And now that we have all of our strips sewn together, we are measuring them 9 1/4 by 9 1/4 and getting them trimmed up into our blocks. And we're going to need at least 8 rows of 7 for our blocks. And we are measuring twice, cutting once, and we're going to cut up all of our strips into blocks, and then we're going to measure them again. As we see here, it's just over 9 1/4, so we've got to trim it down to 9 1/4 because our measurements on our blocks are anywhere from 9 1/4 to 9 1/2. So with our smallest one being 9 1/4, we are trimming them all down to 9 1/4. And again, we're not that far off. And I'm using my 12 1/2 inch ruler, my 2 foot by 3 foot cutting board, and I am using a rotary blade to trim all of my blocks. I do find it helpful that I have these little gummy dots on the back of my board to keep it from sliding as easy when I'm trimming up anything but our blocks. Trimming up our blocks. We're making sure our lines are all even. And with my excess pieces, I'm putting those into our scrap pile because we can use those into a scrappy quilt. So I'm very excited about that. And let's go ahead and open up our strips. And we are just going to keep trimming these until we have all of our blocks cut up. And we have them all nice and neatly ironed. We've pressed our seams and we've repressed the top so we're getting a true measurement, because without a ironing them, you're not going to get a true measurement. And now that we have most of our blocks sewn in too, we're going to go ahead and attach. And then we're going to have a row of 4. And we're making sure all of our seams are flat. We want to keep all of our seams going the same direction and everything lined up perfectly. So I'm holding it all the way through and making sure that I keep my 1/4 inch seams. And then we're laying out our next 2 patch, opening up another 2, laying it over, and sewing it up. So we are sewing on the blue side up with the red side down, matching our corners, and sewing across. And as we start it, we're turning it over, making sure our seams are laying the correct direction and paying attention to our 1/4 inch seam. Holding our fabric all the way through. And going to our next. And again, our aim is 8 rows of 7 across. And each time we're making sure the blue strip is up and the red strip is across on the bottom. whichever way you flip-flop them, put them together, line them up, make sure you're doing it the same each time so that you have the same color in the same spot each and every time you sew. All right, now we have our 4 patches put together and we're ready to increase the row. So we're going to put 4 together and go from there. So excited. Looking great, I think. All right, so we are laying out our blocks, getting a feel for what this quilt is going to look like. So every other row, we are going to start with a different block, and that way we can get our rail fence, if you will, to go well together. And a rail fence is usually 4 strips. We're using 3 little bit wider strips. So you can see the size of the blocks. And I am very, very excited. This is actually looking good. I keep going back and forth. I love, love, love the bold colors. What do you think? Hit the comment button down below. Let me know your thoughts. It's a very simple, very perky, very happy, very fast quilt to make. And our quilt rows are looking pretty good, if I do say so myself. You just got to make sure that every other row is the opposite direction. So when you start your rows, make sure that they are starting with the opposite block. And that way you will have a beautiful quilt, my friends. Woohoo! All right, back to the sewing machine. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4. And here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I need a 7 and an 8. And then off to the iron. Okay, so that row is now done. 2, 3, 4. And these two, blue is on top. Blue is always on top. Line up my sides, line up my top. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we are done. 2 more blocks. Blue is always on top. One more block to go. Okay, and we are going to go ahead and put our iron on the cotton setting. I have it with steam, and we're going to go ahead and press our seams for our rows where we have joined our blocks. And we're going to do this for each of our rows, making sure they're nice and crisp and pressed prior to joining our rows together. And I'm opting to go with the seams towards the solid so that we have less bulk. And the steam in the iron, my friends, it actually helps the ironing process go much quicker when you're working with quilter's cotton. It will actually take you twice as long without water as it does with water. So it's just a real quick, if you will, cheat for me to use water or steam in the iron. Okay, and let's go ahead and grab our next row. And we are matching our seams together. Making sure the seams on the bottom lay correctly. We're nesting our seams on each block, making sure they fit perfectly together. to block, making sure the seams nest. And you may be asking, what does it mean to nest your seams? Here are 2 blocks where they come together, and we're going to either stick a pin in it or keep our fingers in it, and we're going to put them immediately together and fold them over, and we should have already pressed them, and this is what it means to nest. So now I'm going to hold that point to where I come up to it and sew through it. And that is what it means to nest your seams. And that way when you feel it, it's that much more flat. You're going through a lot less layers if you have them properly nested together as you quilt, as you stitch, as you sew. And I'm holding underneath over here the top and the bottom layer so I can pull one or the other to where it goes smoothly. When I say go smoothly, I mean both of them are exactly lined up. They're not out of line like down here. They're perfectly lined up as I get to them. We want to nest each and every single block before we start sewing on that block. That way we know we're lined up. Every time I stop, I'm realigning, making sure everything is laying the way it is pressed to lay. If we have done all of that accurately, when we end, we're perfectly in line and perfectly square. All right. And this is 2 rows to 2 rows. So this is 4 rows that I have now put together, back to the ironing board. Then we lay it out and grab the next 2 rows of 2 rows. And now we're laying out our quilt on the ironing board, and I only have to press 1 seam because I've already pressed the other 2 rows together. So we have turned on our iron on the cotton setting. I have the water inside, so we've got the steam ready, and we're just going to go ahead and press these seams, then turn the quilt over and repress these seams. I have the final 2 sections to put together, and we are all done and ready to hang it up and get it ready for the long arm. Now, to go to the long arm, I do always recommend a border, but I'm not going to have a border on this quilt. What I think we're going to do is I'm going to sew around the edge on every one of these where the blocks come together, right here and right here, and every single place they come together, just to make sure that they are not going to pull or distort as it goes on the long arm. So if you're ever taking your quilt to a long arm quilter, just make sure your seams are very well connected on the ends and they're not going to pull apart. That's extremely vital. Our last rows have been connected, and now we are ready to go back to the ironing board and press all of our seams down. What a beautiful sight to see this almost done. I'm so excited. And our quilt has been pressed, has been finished. Okay, and I have laid out a small Easter quilt on top of the focal block, and we're going to have a separate tutorial, my friends, letting you know about the focal blocks, how to add them, where to add them, what's the reasoning behind it. But I am so excited about this quilt. I hope that you have found this rail fence kind of quilt very easy, and that you will make one yourself. And again, my friends, just 3 different fabrics creates this beautiful quilt. I'm excited. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey, and make sure you hit subscribe. I'd love a like, and I will see you again here real soon, my friends. Have a great day.